Hi, everybody. I'm Darlene Price, and I'm a member of the AFCU Journal Editorial Board. I'm here with Bill Schultz, who's going to talk us through the process of submitting art and poetry to the journal. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Darlene. Thank you. It's wonderful to see you.
It's great to see you again. Hey, Bill, could you first tell us about how you're connected with the Franciscan world?
Yeah, it's always a pleasure for me to talk about that because it's one of the most wonderful, life-changing course changes that I've had. Um, I uh, it- I just celebrated 23 years as a Catholic. Yeah, and when I became Catholic, I thought, so okay, that's it. I'm good. I'll serve on a finance committee at parish or something, and that'll be that. But I went to Assisi with a church group. Went to Italy with a church group, and we spent a couple of days in Assisi. And I recall, and I had read biographies of Francis, kind of popular biographies, and I recall touching a wall in Assisi and thinking, "Wow, I felt something. There was something that came over me, and um, it stayed in me until um, a year or so later." Um, I and my wife at the time, we started thinking about quitting our corporate jobs and going back to school. And we said, we're going to kind of go to separate corners of the house and research where we wanted to go to school. And in a couple of weeks, we'll come back after we've done our research and we'll sit down and say, this is the place. And we had certain guidelines, but nothing much. And so we came back a couple of weeks later, and I said, "So, what are you thinking?" And she said, "Oh, definitely University of San Francisco." Uh, well, that's really convenient because for me it's the Franciscan school, which of course then was in Berkeley. Um, and so I studied there, and the year after I finished my master's work, I stayed at the school and worked at the school as admissions director and recruitment director. And I have over the years, Francis just stays with me more and more. Francis and Claire, and I still feel very close. Um, and in fact, I just returned 2 weeks ago today. I returned from another trip to Italy where I spent time in Assisi and Laverna, and yeah, it still has the same pull to me. So
Oh,
that
wonderful.
in a nutshell is the background.
And there's so much potential subjects for art and poetry when you're in Assisi and all of those Franciscan places. So let me ask you, what kinds of materials have you published, and what's that process like?
I have two master's degrees. My first master's was 30 years before my master's at the Franciscan School, and it was in poetry at the University of New Hampshire, where I worked with Charles Simic, who it was a poet who recently passed away, was poet laureate of the U.S. and is a very influential force in American poetry. So I've been publishing or attempting to publish poetry for um, 50 plus years now. I'm 70. I can see 71 from here. So So a lot of attempts at publishing poetry. I just had a book published last July at age 70. And recently, since I retired, I guess you can see in the background, I've always messed around with drawing and scribbling, but I'm kind of obsessed with painting now. Not kind of obsessed. I'm obsessed with painting, and I've had some success recently with submitting paintings to journals as well, which doesn't get them out of the house because I have stacks of them all around. But so now I'm submitting both poetry and painting and drawings.
So, I'm probably reflecting my own bias. I've published academic articles, so I know how that works. Tell me, is there something different about submitting art and poetry to a journal like the AFCU Journal?
Yeah, I suspect there probably is. The last time I thought about academic writing was probably my thesis at the Franciscan School. But I suspect that it's a little more subjective, right? And just FYI, I nearly 4 years ago, we're in our fourth year now. I and some friends started an online poetry and art journal, which has become kind of ridiculously successful for a venture that was mainly meant to keep me out of trouble in my retirement. We're viewed around the world, and we're now getting a couple thousand visitors every month, which for a little journal is pretty good. So anyway, yeah, I think it's probably in some ways certainly a lot less formal, and the process, at least in most cases, I've found, tends to be more on a real subjective level, because what I do and what people who submit to my magazine, I hope, are doing is looking at issues of wherever I'm sending work. If I'm not, occasionally somebody will reach out to me and say, we're doing an issue on. I had somebody, the former poet laureate here in the state of Maine, reached out to me and said, I'm the poetry editor of the Maine Arts Journal, and we're doing an issue on truth. Do you have any poems that have to do with truth? Which thankfully I did. I had just in a few months earlier had written a poem called A True Story, which seemed to fit pretty well. So I sent her that poem and another poem which she accepted. She knew that I was painting, and she asked if there were any paintings that might kind of accompany them. That doesn't happen a lot. Unfortunately, I wish that happened all the time because it would make my life a lot easier. But it's more about identifying a journal that kind of seems to be in tune with the kind of work that I do, and then I'll reach out to them. So that's kind of the way it works for us. I guess it's kind of the same in some ways for academics. A Franciscan journal would be looking for kind of the same kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of content, and of course, we have a style or submission guideline, so all of the details for poetry and art and academic journals or articles is there. Um, but you mentioned a couple times that it's more subjective, and I'll be honest. When I started my academic career, if an article didn't get accepted, I early on I kind of took it personally. Over the
Yeah.
years, I don't take it personally anymore. It's like, it didn't fit, or I'll have to revise it. No big deal. Can you talk us through that? Is there an emotional charge if something doesn't get accepted?
Yes. Yeah, there is. And I should know better, because I sit here every 3 months with the people that who help me out with the magazine, and um, we have a cutoff, because we publish quarterly. So, and we learned that we had to have a cutoff, or we could be reviewing 200 submissions, 300 submissions, which is just too much. So we have a cutoff of 100 submissions, and they stop there. So I should know better, because on that end of my life, I have to be kind of ruthless. I have people who are associate editors, and we all weigh in, but I have the final say. And there are oftentimes, not oftentimes, every issue, there are a couple of poets who somebody will like a lot, and I won't like at all. And I just say, no, no, it's not. The magazine is called a Hole in the Head Review, because I thought, the world needs another magazine like it, it needs a hole in the head. And uh, I know what I want in Hole in the Head Review. Um, and so, we send out rejections. I should know better than, when I get a rejection, as wonderful a poet as I am, as great and magnificent a poet as I am, that everybody should want my work. When I get a rejection, and most of the time I do get a rejection, um, I I it takes me. It used to take me. I, like you, I would say, "Oh, okay, that poem is bad," or "Those poems are bad," and I'm going to put them in this drawer, and I'm never going to let them see daylight again. But that isn't it. That just isn't it. It really is. Okay, I need to. Is there something that the editor said that I can do, that I need to think about, that I need to possibly change? Or, do I just keep putting it out? In the poetry and art journal world, there are a couple of basic um, sources that you go to submit. So there are some portals that you go to. Most magazines work off 2 or 3 different portals. So, I can go on Submittable, which is kind of the main one, and I can see, magazines will say, click here, and it will take you to their page on Submittable, and you submit there. And then I keep track of my submissions on it. And seriously, if I could show you my submission page over the past 4 years, you would see that the acceptance list is that long, and the rejection the rejection list is pages and pages. Um, it's just the way it's just the way it is. I have more luck now with painting, and maybe it's my painting is is speaking better poetry these days than my poetry. I'm not sure.
Well, I think that's all good information. I think all of us will submit material that might not be appropriate for a given issue of a journal, and a good editor does give feedback or can give feedback that we can use. Can I ask you, when you do receive feedback, how do you know or how do you discern how to use that feedback?
Mm. Um, if, for example, somebody talks about a particular section of a poem, if it's a longer poem and they'll say, oh, there's a cardinal right outside my window. I wish I could show you. He's just sitting there eating. It's afternoon snack time here in Maine. Um, if there's commentary about a section, I'll work on it. I'll try. Most of the time, I will not just go, oh, they don't know what they're talking about, but I'll try to work with what they suggest and see if it feels right to me. I'll live with it for a while. I won't make a decision immediately because my immediate response is no. No, you don't know what you aren't me. That's my immediate response, and I've learned that that doesn't get me anywhere. So I'll I'll work with it. I will oftentimes do a rewrite, either extensive or just make a few little changes, and then I'll sit with it for a while and see after it steeps whether it makes sense or not. I have to say, the book that I published a year ago took years to kind of pull the pieces together in the right way. And I had two people that I really, really, really trust. Over the course of a couple of years, I would put it together and I would say, I think this is it. I think I've got it. And I would send it to them. And they were wonderful, gracious readers. And they would say, nope, you don't got it. And here's what we think. And here's, it wouldn't tell me what to do, but would suggest to me when I read it, they would say, this is what I'm seeing, and this seems out of place. And at first I was like that. I would say, oh man, no, you just don't get the genius that is me. And finally, finally with both of them, it got to, yes, that's it. That's it. And it came from me, and it was validated by trusted readers.
Yeah.
That's important, I think.
That ultimately is really good advice. We create poetry, art, academic articles, but it's in consultation and conversation with others, and using the feedback, sitting with the feedback. It all
Yeah.
takes time, and
Yeah.
I know that I'm a historian, and in the discipline of history, publication doesn't come fast. It doesn't come quickly. We have to sit with, send out to our trusted readers,
Mm.
sit with some more, work with the feedback, and then finally submit, and then get more feedback.
Yeah.
And for
It's
edit.
the same way. It is the same way. I'm old enough to remember when submitting poetry meant, taking the pages, folding them up, putting them in an envelope, and getting the address of the New Yorker, which is where, I thought my poetry should be. And we had a joke in grad school at UNH that, the New Yorker employed someone in every post office in America to accept those envelopes and then put it right back at you the same day with a rejection slip. but yeah, um, yeah, it's important to have, it's important to not be too rash in thinking, oh, this is this is the best thing I've ever done. I think that a lot with paintings. I'll sit here at night and finish, days or weeks of painting and think, there, whoo, that's done. And then I'll go to bed and I wake up in the morning light and go, boy, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? That's not it at all. And it's an important lesson, I think.
Yeah, and especially, the feedback with other people, that's what makes this process very Franciscan, right? We're not in this alone. It's very relational. We might be the author, we might be the artist, but it's never done in isolation. It's
No,
always
that's for sure.
in community.
That's for
So
sure.
this has been really helpful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with people watching who might be submitting to the AFCU journal?
Um, just a couple of things in regards to in the kind of mechanics of submitting, and that is, and this comes from editor Bill. Um, Double, triple, quadruple check your work before you send it for for spelling, for simple, for the most simple things, for spelling, grammar, commas. I'm embarrassed to say that I submitted an application for a prize for the magazine. There's an organization that was giving out awards to magazines, and so I submitted, and I had reason to. Somebody asked me about it, and I pulled it up. I pulled up the submission, and I read the cover letter, and I don't know what was going on, but I had the same paragraph 3 times. I think I did cut and paste, and I was hasty, and I was just like, well, no wonder. No, they tossed, as an editor, if I see a sloppy submission, no matter what the submission is, I go into the submission thinking, they don't really care that much. So I can't stress that enough. Just go over it and over it. Have somebody else look at it. Again, have another set of eyes on it to make sure that you're presenting the best you can. And I don't know about the journal, but on my end, um, for my magazine, and what I've had to learn as somebody who submits, is to not be a pest.
Mm.
Submit it and be patient, which is hard, but maybe if it goes 6 months, I don't know what turnaround is like for you, Darlene, but we try with my magazine to respond within 30 days, but that's not the norm at all. And so don't be a pest. Don't start writing emails to the editor saying, I submitted 2 months ago. What's going on there? You guys are incompetent. Those are my two main suggestions.
Oh, that's really helpful. Well, thanks, Bill. Thanks for doing this. And
Absolutely, my pleasure.
I look forward to picking up your magazine and checking out your poetry and art.
Holeintheheadreview.com.
All right.
And
Thanks.
my book is Dog or Wolf, and it's available on Amazon.
Super.
Check it out.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.